Hey guys, it's Brett from Energetic Arts, and welcome to today's open meditation Q&A session. How is everyone? Let me know in the chat feed if everything's going well. We've got sound, audio, visual, internet connection, all systems go. Excellent. Good. Excellent. Good. Now, Abel, do you want to share the screen and pose your questions this way, or what do you want to do? Should we get into it again? All right, good stuff. Hey, welcome aboard.
There we go.
Just turn this.
Yeah, it makes me go through a rigorous process just to get on here. It, like, tests me several times with the camera situation. So.
It's like at the airport.
Sorry for the delay,
down, and the whole thing goes around you. You get cleared, and now you're
right. Yeah, I got to get patted down.
Yeah, it's we're cutting edge stuff here. It's high security.
Right.
Not everyone gets into this room, so it's
Right.
eyes only stuff at the moment. So, I know we had a big session last week, and you're looking like you're beaming.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So there was just a lot of emotions going on in the house today, and prior to me getting on, me and Rebecca were having a discussion about some things. So yeah, that's where I had to actually remove my mentalness from that situation and come over here.
Yeah. All right. So should we chill out a little bit first and get into the right state?
No, I think we should just jump right into it.
Cool. Let's do it. What do you want to work on today?
All right. So I'm going to talk about a serious topic here. It might sound kind of funny, but I want to talk about the topic of sex.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of contradicting things about it. Some people say you shouldn't have sex so often. You should kind of hold that energy back to be more creative. And then I also hear that you should participate in that act because it does make me discover that I am able to use sex as an access point to connect and to create. And what are some ways that we can you benefit from this? I've also read some things like sex magic with a K. You can use like symbols that you can create to further that experience.
Yep. Yeah. And then there's tantric as well. Tantra.
Tantra.
Magic, they call it. Yeah. So it's good. Thank you, because it's one of those taboo topics. But it's like breathing. Everyone on the planet came through someone having sex. And as soon as you get old enough and your emotions and your chemicals start running, then you get driven. You have these drives towards sex. And so, there's a lot of confusion around sex and not sex and all that, like you were saying. But when you're talking about in terms of spirituality, it's all, from what I gather and the study I've done and the practice that I've done, is that it's all about moving your energy. And so, as we know, there's a lot of energy that gets stored in the first three seals, first three energy centers or chakras, depending on what terminology and school of thought you're coming from. And when that energy gets released, it's so powerful that you can reproduce another human being. And we've heard that before through other speakers saying stuff like that. But we're going to sort of have to hit these topics are so good to talk about, first of all, because they're so general and they affect everyone. So we have to sort of hit it at different angles before we get a really good shape of what's going on there. But generally speaking, you've got to imagine when all these rules of, don't have sex, like with religion and all that, it's not coming from a place when you start to get mastery over your energy of it's good or bad. It's just that especially when people are young, teenagers and things like that, you don't want them making bad decisions and making decisions and actions that are going to affect their future long term. And if you're wanting them to focus on mastering themselves, then you sort of want to steer them away from, early pregnancy and getting in, getting involved with partners that aren't respectful and all that basic stuff that parents would do. But there's more to it than that. And that is, a lot of conflict when people can't master their emotions and their drives comes from, people, for lack of a better term, messing around with other people's partners, right? And there's this possession thing. That's my wife, that's my husband, that's my girlfriend, that's my boyfriend, whatever. And when people aren't mature enough to deal with the difficult emotions of unrequited love or feelings of missing out or rejection or betrayal or whatever those things are, because they're quite heavy emotions, then it can steer you way off track into these dark spaces that are really hard if you're not equipped to pull yourself out of and get back on track. And so when we're moving this energy, especially when we're talking about doing, it's been termed the breath, but when you're talking about breathing techniques that squeeze the energy up and out the top of the head and cause the energy field to plume out, that's a massive amount of energy. And so when we're talking about that in the next few weeks, there's not just the breath itself, learning how to do it that way, but it's the breathing techniques to recover from what's happened. It's breathing techniques to prime you to get ready into that situation. And we're going to get into breath gearing and breath signatures that talk about that there's different patterns and breath signatures and that match up movements and moods and certain things. So when you get that all tuned in, when you do that breath, it's very much aligned. But then there's the other side to it, is if you're a person who's predisposed, like myself, for example, to, attracting and building energy very quickly, then sometimes you can get, overloaded, and having sex is a good way to disperse and depressurize that buildup of energy. And until you can master it and move it and, create with it, for example, or direct and project that energy in different areas, then, sex is a beautiful way to discharge that energetic charge that you can build up through these breathing practices and meditations. So, I think the main thing here is to move past, is this good, is this bad? And is what I'm into good or bad? And if society likes what I'm into, then it's okay. And if they don't, then maybe I'm a bit of a weird person or whatever. But as an adult, that's entirely up to you. It's between you and your partners. It's all about how you want to design it and how you want to create those situations. And no one else has to like it. you know, I think there's definitely boundaries where, you know, we're seeing in the media now, you know, with all the sexual assault stuff and all that, that's definitely not on, obviously. But when you're getting mature, free-thinking adults deciding how they want to express themselves on a sexual level, then I think there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a good thing. And in terms of being a spiritual person, I think you should master every level of yourself, including your drives. And that includes, you know, turning them off so you can focus on things. But then when you're ready, you know, enjoy it as much as you like, and activate all levels if you can, or not.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you on that. Another part in the same topic is, can both partners access point during the same time during
meaning
sex?
Can they both access? Sorry, rephrase that. Say again.
So can two people access at the same time?
Yeah,
during the act of sex, like
yeah,
a higher consciousness.
For sure, yeah, yeah. There is a point where you can dissolve past your personalities and then sort of merge into this one being, you know, for lack of a better term, where your identities begin to dissolve, and you just totally, you know, you're totally immersed in the reflection of yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean,
I was recently brushing up.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead. I think we got a lag somewhere. You there?
Yeah, you were saying.
Okay, there you go.
All right. So what I was saying was.
You go. Okay.
Yeah. You go. We'll get this timing sorted out. This timing issue sorted out.
Yeah, there's a lag, or serious lag going on. So sorry.
No, that's all right. You please, after you.
Okay, so I was recently brushing up on Napoleon Hill, and he was talking about sex transmutation in one of his chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that caught my attention was he was talking right before climax, would close his eyes, images and ideas and new things would pop, visions would pop into his mind at that time, and he would actually solve quite complex problems during this time. I just thought that was really interesting and a little bit fascinating at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can only imagine what that would have been, but this sort of ties into the other question you had about sex magic with a K. Is it you can actually set, like a manifestation, you can set up, for example, you know, create a symbol of your manifestation, and at the point of climax or thereabouts, you can, you know, hold that image in your mind, and when that explosion of energy happens on whatever level or levels you're doing it through, then there's a lot of energy being sort of stamped into that image, and so, you know, it can speed up that manifestation process, because it's like the more energy behind things, the faster things move and the faster things can collapse. I think one of the biggest challenges most people have when it comes to manifesting is they're not understanding how much energy needs to go into certain things. especially if they're complicated manifestations in the mind that's manifesting them. In other words, if you don't have the neural net set up for all that energy to travel through, like an electrical current, if it gets interrupted or blocked or short circuits, it gets discharged before it can reach its end point, then, and we all know how frustrating that can be, is that it won't imprint on the field, and then it won't create, and then you're sort of left wanting, So, pardon the all pun intended. So yeah, it's sex in that respect. There's the sex for pleasure, for the sake of sex, and then there's sex for a purpose, like creating another human being, or creating some sort of manifestation, or directing your energy in a particular way. It can be very intense and life-changing.
Yeah. I recently stumbled upon this, through an experience that I had, and hopefully they can gain some insight on this topic as well.
Yeah, and I mean, for me anyway, it's a really fun area to practice in, especially, when your partner's willing and into it and curious about it too. It's a lot of fun. It's exciting. Yeah. I think it's like everything, it's your approach to it. If you just sort of, take the approach of this 3D body, you're this machine moving around, your partner's another machine, and you get into this act of like two slot machines trying to hit jackpot at the same time, then you're only going to have a limited experience. And the odds of that aren't that great, but there's things you can do to stack it all and practice. And I guess it's interesting that this has come up, because it's funny sort of metaphor for the topic of the approach to spiritual practice and training, is that a lot of people are after the climax, they're after the mystical experience, they're after the manifestation, they're after whatever it is, the end goal. But like in sex, if you're doing it well, you should be enjoying the whole thing all the way through. And the climax is this icing on the cake. And I mean, I know we can't do it like that all the time, and I think being honest about where you are and what you like and what you enjoy, it removes that shame, it removes that anxiety. It builds a lot of confidence. You can just speak your mind and say, this is what I like, and as an adult, that's okay. And yeah, you can start to have these experiences, live out these fantasies, which is also, a manifestation act, because if it's always in your head and you're never actually doing it, then how is it you're going to be able to manifest a house or your dream car, if you can't express your wants and needs honestly to a person that you're connected to on an intimate level? I mean, you can, but why not, practice it everywhere, including through sex?
I think we shed quite a bit of light on that topic.
Sure.
Can we change topics here as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next thing I wanted to kind of bring up, is about time. I know time is something that we as humans kind of put there in place. How do we know that in the present moment, the past, or the future?
How do we know?
There's a way to.
Well, you know, it's all happening. All of it's happening in the present. Even when you're thinking about something in the past or imagining something in the future that's happening right now in the present moment, that what we think is memory it's not like on a computer they've sort of discovered that when you remember something, it's not like you open a file and there's the complete video of the experience and it's the same. What they're saying is that you recreate the memory each time you remember it from components that the brain is already wired to experience. So for example, you can see this painting behind me with all the colors in there. If we were to, once we've finished, now we'll project into the future, once we finish this session and then go about our night and then the day tomorrow, and if you're thinking now from the future, we're coming back to the present and remembering the past from the future, still with me, then when you're looking at this experience and you recreate it in your mind, all the neurons that you have that relate to green and blue and white and yellow become activated, and you reconstruct the memory based on your, you know, how skilled you are at recreating, how accurate you are at recreating it. And you're always doing it through the filters of where your mind is at in the present anyway. So the reality is that you're always in this present moment of now, and the future and the past only exist when you create it in your mind.
At times my mind, you know, kind of wanders a lot, and I can't help but to imagine, or this, maybe we're watching this from the future and we're brushing up, or we're actually reviewing what we're saying at the moment.
Sorry, you blipped out a little bit there. Can you repeat that?
Okay. Yeah, so I was wondering, because my imagination goes quite a bit now. I was wondering if maybe we were in the future, but we were reviewing this up on our skills from a future standpoint.
Yeah. So the other way of looking at it, and you know, these are good little thought exercises to get your brain going in different directions, is that when we're looking at the multiple timeline, multiple universe theory, is that everything is just information, and it's a potential information potential. And then when we have a particular focused thought or observe those potentials in a particular way, it collapses down. And if we do that often enough and long enough with enough energy, then it becomes our physical experience. So it's almost like, imagine a funnel, and up the top here, you've got all these infinite potentials, past, present, future, and then they all collapse down into this physical body, and then it gets projected out, and that becomes your experience. And so when you're skilled at identifying these potentials, or not even creating, more observing them, honing in on them, and you can start to draw them into your awareness, then you start to navigate through these potential timelines. It's like they all exist all at once, and then you're tuning your frequency from one station to the next, to the next, to the next, or one slide of each moment in time that gives this illusion of continuity, like a movie, and you start moving, navigating through your life this way. You still with me?
Yeah. That time lag we're on right now was kind of catching up to you.
Bit of a lag.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not difficult to tune into these potential timelines because they're floating around all the time, and you just sort of got to catch the thought of them, become aware of them. And you know, they can be in the future, or they can be in the past, or they can be on a parallel timeline, and you can experience this in the mind, or you know, on an astral level, or whatever your beliefs are. But you know, the skill really, for me, in my opinion, comes into how do you ground that into living that as your experience in that moment. Because the potential of any mind that's ever been past, present, and future, the possible configurations are all potentially there, because you've got the, you know, billions of neurons in the brain, and you know, the potential connections and configurations of billions of neurons, you know, and they're in the trillions. It's astronomical. It's an infinite, or at least if it is finite, it's potentially, you know, there's so many there, you could never experience them all. So this skill of being able to sort of move the mind into the past and the future, even though you're creating it in the physical experience right now, this is more to the point of where I want to get people's minds to when it comes to manifesting, rather than this linear fashion that now I have to sit down, I have to do these steps, and then, you know, if I trudge away and slave away long enough, then it will appear in my world in the future somewhere. It's more like, no, it's there in potential in the mind. If you can conceive it, it's there. You can perceive it, it's there. But then now it's about lining up with that. And so I've been watching some really cool documentaries, just because I like to learn new stuff on aviation, and looking at the old Blackbird SR-71, the old spy plane that, you know, they built in the 60s and was operational all the way through to the late 80s, nearly 30 years. And this thing, at its peak, you know, would fly at 80, 90,000 feet right on the edge of space. It had these turbo ramjets that just kept accelerating. The faster it went, the faster the engines would go. And it was made of titanium, so it held together, and they got the engineering just perfect. And as far as a air-breathing aircraft went, it was, that we know of, you know, that the public know of, it was, you know, it was the top of the line. But the amount of development that went into that being a reality was huge. You know, it was years and years of testing and building, and they were using titanium for the body, and they hadn't even had tools to be able to forge the titanium back then. They even had to make tools to make the plane. So the idea from concept, from this idea that they can see in their mind, to actual physical reality, was this huge undertaking with a whole group of people all playing at the top of their game.
Yeah, titanium is a very delicate metal. I just recently found out how to have some welding done on some equipment, and the welder was, even nowadays, getting the titanium to do what he wanted it to do. And back in those days, it must have been really difficult.
Well, I can only imagine what it would have been like.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to also bring up was I was in meditation a few days ago, and everything that was brought up in my meditation, that's why I wanted to bring it up. Like, it's almost like the conversation already took place in the meditation in a different consciousness. And so I felt like I needed to bring these topics up today. And that's why I brought those today.
All right. So where, after hearing what I've had to say about those topics, where do you stand on it from just before, half an hour ago to now? What's the difference? How do you? What are your views?
The sex terms for it, but I just wanted some clarification on it from a different viewpoint, because I've experienced something really special. I wanted other people out there to also experience the same thing, if they can use that as an access point as well. But I think everything that you said was spot on, and I'm excited to go create even more things through that process. So,
yeah, I think it's a great area to delve deeply into and experience as much of it as you can. All in the right way. Why not? I think part of one of the. Can you imagine for a moment if? Okay, I'll just take one step back from there. So you got to imagine, like back in the biblical times, people, were basically in survival. There was no technology. Just go with me on this for a second, and
okay.
The vocabulary maybe hadn't been established to the masses on how to elevate their consciousness and raise their energy, and they had no idea what energy centers were, or the reality of our existence is more information based and energy based than it is matter. And so it's almost like a parent talking to a child, because it's going to take so long to explain to them why they shouldn't or should make certain choices. So you just say, just don't do that, don't do that. Stay away from him, stay away from her. Don't let them touch you here. Don't participate in these type of activities, right? And then you sort of forget about it and you get on with life. But we've been doing that for 2,000 years, except maybe, the Indians and Tantras are now coming through yoga and intimacy groups and all that sort of stuff, that there's almost every class now on, what are they, those social networks like Meetup, love yourself, get in touch with yourself, women experiencing their feminine energy, men going to the divine masculine, all that sort of stuff is starting to come to the forefront now, because people are becoming more okay with the idea of sex. It's not like, you're not going to go to hell. People don't really, I don't think people, intelligent people, really believe they're going to go to hell if they have sex and it felt good. So can you imagine? And maybe it's a good point from here to move into that kind of mindset, is that if we weren't all tangled up with shame and taboos and what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and to be able to explore that freely, like I said before, at your own pace, in your own way, with people that care for you, and it's all stacked in your favor, then once you've had these sorts of experiences, then it evolves you into what's beyond there. And so, you know, if we have a lot less frustrated people out there, I think that's a good thing. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, generally just as a practical, you know, guide, it's like you don't have to rush in and start doing all these things, but, you know, maybe get more comfortable talking about it. You know, these conversations are healthy, I think, because people can, you know, secretly listen in and, you know, giggling or not, embarrassed or not, shameful or not, they can go, oh, well, you know, someone seems to be pretty comfortable with it. I mean, it's not like it's going away. I mean, look at all the porn sites out there, and it's just, you know, it's overload. So there's obviously a need for it amongst everybody. But I think it's a matter of understanding the drives, not so much controlling them, but coming into balance with them, you know. And I think, you know, when it comes to things like celibacy, the way I understand it, because I'm not celibate, by the way, but is that you start moving the energy up more and more, and you start doing different things with it, and the pleasure you're getting out of that is greater than the pleasure you would have on a physical level. And I mean, I'm not there yet, but I notice that I'm a lot more picky with the partners that I choose, because it's like, yes, I could have a physical act with that person, but what I'm focusing on now is more of a whole experience, or something that's going to get me out of my body. You know, I'm going to experience the pleasure of the body, but then it's going to push me out of the body into, you know, this altered state of being, or a much faster pathway to creating certain things in my life. There's different uses for sex, you know, not just reproduction, not just pleasure. There can be all those other things, but combinations of them as well.
I never thought we've been talking about it until just recently, and I think it was that we brought this up because a lot of people categorize everything and like you said, put shame behind a lot of things. And I think this has kind of opened my eyes as well to the possibilities of using sex to create other than human beings.
Yeah, and the other side of it is, like, if you haven't come to terms with your own sexuality, and I'm not talking about preference in male, female, or either, or whatever. I'm talking about you're okay with your choices and your actions regarding sex, and maybe, you know, you've had enough of those experiences where you feel like you're expressed, you know, like you've been there, done that sort of thing, and you know what you like. It's a bit like, you know, getting into wines. We've heard this story through, you know, Dr. Joe, where he talks about in the beginning, you've got no idea what wine you like, but you try all these different things, and eventually, you know, you sort of hone in on certain things, and your tastes change over time. But at least now you know what you don't want to drink and what you do want to drink, and I think that's a really valuable thing to know about yourself, because if you don't know that about yourself, then that's when it leaves you vulnerable, leaves you open to control and manipulation from other people. And worst of all, you can make a prisoner of yourself in your own mind, depriving yourself of certain experiences that you think are, shameful or people aren't going to accept, and just winding yourself up into knots when, generally it's probably no big deal for a lot of people. The spectrum of what's weird and unacceptable, there's a lot in between that a lot of people, are quite comfortable with if you get into a conversation where you can talk about it with them. And I think, let's be honest, people enjoy talking about sex if they feel comfortable with the people they're talking about it with.
Yeah, definitely. You need to have more hot topics like this to talk about more frequently. Just break that shell from these hot topics and be more open about them and speak freely about them.
Yeah, and I think, people would probably consume a lot less alcohol and do a lot less stupid things. And especially young guys would do a lot less stupid things, if it was okay for them to just go direct and say, this is what I like and this is what I want. And if you're into it, great. And if you're not into it, I'm okay. Somebody will be, because everyone's into something and there's got to be people out there that are into the same stuff as me. So, I've seen, like, we've got kids in our care back in Australia, and one of them is, one of the young guys is 16, and he's a smart guy until it comes to girls, and he's an absolute idiot around when it comes to, trying to get what he wants from girls. He does all this weird stuff that he would never do in a heartbeat for anything. But if he thinks it's going to get him a step closer to these girls, he's in there trying to bend over backwards, and it's hilarious to watch.
Yeah, I think a lot of young men are that way.
Yeah,
I certainly was.
Oh yeah, I don't think anyone's immune. I think we've all tried it out. Pretending you're into something when you're really not, or you try a different haircut or whatever. It's hilarious, but that's what happens when you're growing up in a culture that hides it here and there, and doesn't really prepare you. There's not much conversation about it. Even sex education was all pretty much mostly anatomy and physiology and how it works, which doesn't really prepare you for the act when it happens.
So, yeah, I agree.
So how does that feel now?
Feels much better. Conversation about the topic, and yeah, excited to create.
Yeah, and I mean, you're an adult, right? You're an adult. You're legally an adult. You're old enough. I think you should be able to, explore certain things, within the parameters of, obviously not doing, anything illegal or whatever, but or harmful, But yeah, there's a huge. I mean, you just got to look online. There's so many things out there for everybody. It's just, I think it's really healthy to, with the right people, talk about it, experience it, and not, but like what we're doing now, if you can sort of put that energy, or not control it, but you put it into an area where it's not driving you, it's fine. It's like you can talk about any topic like that without sort of it driving you here and there and directing you all over the place. I think that's when it's a problem. When it starts driving you rather than you driving it.
Yeah. As a young man for myself, I had no guidance as far as sex was concerned. It was just like a girl, and I had to figure it out for myself. I didn't have nobody. And the more that we talk about these topics out there, make better decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And and not make bad decisions at the same time. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is if we were talking to young men out there, it would be like just about 80-90% of what's out there is okay, and you just got to be, how do I put this? Yeah, you just relax into it, Don't make it such a big deal. And it's something that's fine to explore. And I think in the right way, it can be a very spiritual practice. Incredibly spiritual. It can really connect you right back into that source, where that energy comes from. What do you think, Abel?
I think tonight was a good conversation, and I benefited from this conversation quite a bit, and in the aspect of creating my partner and being able to do that. I think that's something special as well. When you have two people who can put those emotions towards something in their future and different things. So yeah, excited to learn area as well.
Yeah. Knock yourself out. Yeah, and why not make it fun? Why not make it playful? It doesn't have to be all serious and sacred all the time. It can be fun, it can be playful, it can be whatever you choose it to be. And play with it at all different levels and try all these different things out. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, it's fine. Just as long as you're not hurting anyone and everyone's old enough and consenting, I don't see a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that really.
But that's all I have for tonight.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we just.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right. Or maybe we just finish off with just a bit of a relaxation in that topic. Just let that energy settle down and allow it to move. Just imagine that, because even when we're talking about this, whether it's my stuff or your stuff, or it's the energy that's observing this conversation through time, and we're empathically picking up on that through these connections, through these infinite potential timelines. If we could all just take a deep breath and chill out and relax into it rather than trying to manage it or compartmentalize it, or conform it this way or steer it that way. You can just start by relaxing that energy and allowing it to move around, slowly, just slowly at first. It's like learning how to operate a vehicle. You don't want to rush into anything. You want to get used to everything first. Don't be in a hurry to get into the upper atmosphere and doing Mach 5 in your jet. Like, just relax, learn all about it, figure it all out, take your time, relax, find a good partner, that's supportive, doesn't make you feel bad for your choices, encourages your choices, maybe say, hey, let's try this, let's do that. Maybe I'm into this. What do you think about that? Talk about it until it all becomes normal. It's just like, yeah, it's all fine. Whether you want to participate or not, up to you. But I think letting that judgment go, allowing people to explore and experience what they want to experience. Sometimes it's just about having that one experience so you can say you've done it, and then bring it back to back to your center. Just let that energy move. Have compassion for it. Imagine what it would be like if society, religion, people's attitudes weren't shaping you to feel shameful for it in the beginning. Who would you be now? Where would you be? What would you be doing? What wouldn't you do? Just allow the mind to wander, the energy to move. Just relax into it. Feel that ecstasy and freedom to just be okay with where you're at. Kind of like the young guys, it's going to happen, man. It's coming. Just relax into it. Don't be in a rush. Enjoy the process. And just feel whatever it is that's sort of causing that disruption until it finally smoothens out. Comes into balance. Becomes your new normal. And when you want to, you can move that energy all the way up to the top and out of your head. And if you want to, you can move it all the way down and out through your groin. become interested in moving that energy around, building it up, using it for things, using it for pleasure, bringing it down so it doesn't throw you off balance. And maybe we can just start by talking and expressing what's happening to us rather than pretending it's not happening and trying to present something else. It's amazing what doors you can open when you start calling yourself out and expressing what's happening with you to, people who are receptive to hear it without being controlled by it.
Mm.
I think there's something really valuable in people
who can
do that, call themselves out in a way where they're not attached to it or an outcome. For example, the young guy is all nervous walking up to that girl. If he's trying to act cool, it's probably going to go sideways. But, she's a person too. And maybe if he just said, hey, looking at you is making me feel kind of weird inside. And I don't know if I like it or not, but it's, this is what's happening. I think maybe she might, oh, creep, weirdo, and walk away. She might like, oh, really? Is that how I make you feel? That's a compliment, It can be taken however different ways. It's just, I think when you're not connected to it and it's not driving you around, then, it feels a lot. It's sort of like, oh, it's this energy you just passed through my body and this is what it felt like. Same sort of thing. And what can we do with that energy? Where can it go? How's it affecting my life? Is it affecting me in a good way? Is it affecting me in a not so good way? Am I just imagining that things are affecting me in a bad way when perhaps maybe they're not? Or maybe I think they're not affecting me in a bad way and they are. What is bad? Some things that you maybe have been taught are shameful and disgusting. Other people think it's fantastic and they love it. You just don't know until you are in a comfortable, safe place to share and express those ideas, thoughts, feelings, desires. And rather than make judgments about whether things are right or wrong, maybe look and see what's actually happening. What's going on in my brain? What's going on in my body? Why is it doing that? If I'm in a safe place, and I let that roll out, then how does that change me for the better or not? I think, just on a side note, a lot of, what people are seeking in terms of relationship and connection with people is, that comfort to be able to express yourself honestly in all ways, and of course, including sex, for sure. And, not be judged for your likes and dislikes or your wants or desires. And I found that I found that it's an attractive quality. People like to be around people who are comfortable with themselves and with their choices. And that definitely includes their choices around sex. So you feel a little more discharged, a little more relaxed on that topic? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely feel a lot more relaxed and more comfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't just have to be released that way. It can be released on all these levels. It can be released in different ways. But, if you're not, and I'm not saying you, Abel, I'm saying generally, if people are not skilled or practiced in these other ways, then yes, that pressure of energy can build up and get out of control. Sometimes having sex is a great way to just bring things down a few notches so you can turn the brain back on and, bring balance and back into the body, equalize, especially now with all this, lots of people are meditating, lots of people are getting into spirituality. There's a lot of energy being built up everywhere now. And, just like the metaphor of the pilot and the plane, the faster you go, the more skill it takes, the more things can go wrong. Obviously, if you've got that all worked out, it can be absolutely mind-blowing and life-changing. But if you're not there yet, then yeah, not hurting anyone, privacy of your own home or not, whatever your preference is. And there's nothing wrong with it. Not in my mind, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Learn about it, get good at it, practice, go for it. The other thing as well is that sharing of energy between two people. That's another skill too, which can be a lot of fun. How you doing? How you feeling?
Until this experience, I had no idea that sex could be used for and other powerful things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. lot of energy being built there. Yeah. And when you've got two people, it's,
I think the public
exponentially.
The public knew more about what powers they are capable of to participate in it, not just for the physical pleasure.
Well, I mean, what would you want to do with it? What would you want to do with that energy?
Me personally?
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to answer that. It's up to you.
More along designing my future in a more powerful way.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I was saying earlier, simple practice is if you design a symbol or a sigil, that represents your potential target future timeline or whatever. I mean, you don't have to be focused, you don't have to put it on the ceiling or anything, but if you just bring it up to your awareness,
right,
every so often, you'd be surprised what you can create.
Yeah, I had no idea that was a possibility.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of books you can read about it. I mean, the Kama Sutra is, it's been around forever. And I think the story was it was Shiva and his wife, and Shiva was, one of the gods. So, but I think part of it is, calling out when it feels awkward. Like, why is it awkward to talk about it? Why, and not just that, but just see where the boundaries are of where it starts to become less comfortable, and why. If you look at it, it's like in this example, we're just talking, like it's just a conversation, and I don't feel like you're judging me for what I'm saying, and I'm not judging you for what you're saying. So why is the energy sort of getting like a little bit, why is it awkward to talk about it? Why is that? Where did that come from? Because it's not something I'm really aware of. It's just something I've been doing. It's sort of been put there. And you've got to ask yourself these questions, like when it's something common like breathing or sex or what you put into your body, or how you behave or how you speak, and it's not really, it's not harmful to anybody, then there's got to be a lot of power in it. Can you imagine, like, if you can convince a mass of people that something that every one of them does regularly, and something that led to their very existence, if you can get a handle on that, if you can direct that, then that's a really powerful piece of coding to access in people, right? And so I think it's really important to get into that yourself, right? And to explore that for yourself And it doesn't mean you have to go all, wild and wacky like Aleister Crowley and get into, rituals where you're burning candles and chanting to deities and all this sort of stuff. That's not what I mean. But if you can get to a place of relaxation and comfort within yourself about what you like and why you like it, and create those experiences to where that maybe that's a normal experience for you, then it relieves, apart from relieving a lot of pressure, it gives you back the control in that area of your mind body energy. And then from there, once you've equalized that, well, people can say whatever they like about it, but it's like, well, it doesn't really matter what you think about my choices, because I'm okay with them. And I think, an extreme, well, it's not really extreme, but I think a real obvious illustration is we saw, with the gay, lesbian community, and with transgender people, coming out and expressing themselves. And, there's still some people that are all hung up on that, but it's like, who cares? Why is it that we're in a society that doesn't allow people to express themselves like that? And that's not just about gay and lesbian and bisexual community or transgender. That's just about sex itself and sexual behaviors, and I think, and maybe I'm going a bit too far, but this is just an opinion, take it or leave it, is that because of all that weirdness that's around it, that's when we get all these distortions about, people, like what we're seeing in the news and politics now, and, the sexual abuses to men and women and children. It's just like, it doesn't make sense from a point of view of someone who's relaxed and accepting of their own sexuality. It's like, that to me sounds like, there's something distorted going on there for people to behave that way, I think. And I feel that if people were more relaxed about their own sexuality and their choices and their preferences, and they allowed other people to have the room to make their choices and not put them into boxes, then we wouldn't have these distortions. Those energies would be being expressed clean and clear, and all in a direction that, is healthy and positive, and expanding people's awareness and consciousness. But that's my opinion.
Well, that's very good. Good way to put it.
Yeah. So, in a way, being a spiritual person, I think you have a responsibility to explore your sexuality, whatever that is, and get yourself into a place where you don't feel those distortions in your energy around your base, your lower three centers. Because when those lower three centers are clean and clear and the energy's functioning correctly, it's going to naturally move up into the heart space. When the energy's clean and clear there, it's going to naturally move into the throat, and then it's clean and clear, it'll naturally move into the center of the head and naturally move into the crown and up and out. And it goes back to, like I was saying, about the incredible engineering that happened with these jets, is that they wouldn't just come up with an idea and slap some metal together and throw a guy in the cockpit and put him out there and hope the flight went well. They would test and You know, every piece and component, they would double check and triple check, and they would get it all perfect. And then when it all came together, you know, everyone was safe. You know, this particular jet, this Blackbird, you know, it was never shot down, and it was never struck by anything, you know, that was just so far beyond anything that anyone had ever seen. And you can only imagine what that experience would have been like, looking at the world from that view. You know, being so tuned in that you could really open those jets up all the way. And, you know, the pilots would say that the feeling of the potential of when you were flying in terms of speed was unlimited. You know, they just thought it could just keep going faster and faster. It was that well tuned in. And as a result, you know, as far as the stories go, it had such a huge influence on the world that only we're finding out about what it did at the time. But can you imagine a society that was unhooked in terms of their sexuality and their choices?
So many more happy people.
I think so. You know, orgasm a day keeps the doctor away. I think you'd see a lot less stressed out people. You know, I remember I was talking to a guy about this topic. You know, it was more of a private conversation, but he was saying how, you know, it just really helps him calm down. And he'll be having a bad day. He's like, ah, rah, rah. And his girlfriend would come up, let me take care of you, baby. It'll be fine. Let me take care of you. He's like, no, you don't understand. It's so stressful, and the people, and rah. She's like, no, come on, calm down, relax. I've got this. I'll take care of you. He's like, yeah. Okay, then. All right. Okay. Yeah, oh, that feels better. Oh, I forgot what I was angry about now. You know?
Right.
Yeah, it's why not? It's if it's done in the right way, whatever that means. And when I say that, I mean if it's healthy, consensual, everyone's old enough, everyone's mature enough to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. Yeah, no problem. From an adult perspective, go for it. Yeah. I think it should be part of your practice until, you know, you find you know, you're like this Yoda levitating that finds more pleasure in the stillness of the moment than anything else. Then, you know, then maybe you'll stop doing it and you'll become celibate. But I don't think you should be trying to be celibate. I think you should be a natural evolution. It's like, well, you know, I used to have sex, but now it doesn't do it for me anymore like this does, you know. Until then, you know, do what makes you feel good. I think you're missing out on a big part of life if you don't really participate in it and figure it all out. I mean, I couldn't imagine personally, you know, one of the things I don't want to do is come to the end of my life going, oh, if only I could do this again, or if only I did that and I didn't stop myself from taking this opportunity or whatever. You know, I think I want to get to that point. I'm like, yeah, I'm cool now. I think I've done everything I came here to do. You know, I did it in all the ways I wanted to do, and now I'm good. What's next? Yeah, no regrets. Yeah. Anything else?
We went pretty deep in this conversation. Job well done.
Yep. Well, when it comes to this topic, I like to go as deep as I can. Doesn't all have to be serious, right? You can have fun with it.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't see that coming.
Oh, the puns just are rolling out now, isn't it? It's a good thing it's 8:30, you know. It's time to go out and get a drink because, you know, you're already on a roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just in closing, you know, just take yourself off the hook, you know. Just, you know, part of, you know, the stories about Buddha, you know, he got involved with, I can't remember the name of the sect, but these are the guys that would, you know, that hold their hand up in the air for years until the tendons fused and they couldn't bring the arm down, to show as a display that they had dominion over the physical body. Like they could train it so hard that it would do exactly what you wanted it to do. But then he just sort of got to this point where, you know, he was suffering so bad that he sat down under the Bodhi tree and he's like, makes the decision. He said, I'm not moving until, you know, I become enlightened. And then when he came out of it, he was like, man, there's got to be a balance here. You know, what are we suffering for so much? That if we're here to experience this life, we should be experiencing, you know, the full spectrum, you know. And I think sex is such a natural part of life. To, you know, get all tangled up in it is just, it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know about you, but I feel pretty satisfied after that conversation.
Yes, great job.
I aim to please. All right, Abel.
All right, Brad.
Take it easy. Have fun, and I'll see you.
So we'll see you in a couple nights.
All right, mate. Take it easy. Bye.
Okay.